Touchdown, Chargers!
What's up, guys? Welcome into a brand new episode of Chargers Weekly. It's championship week in the NFL, and Money, hard to believe 2 weeks ago we were preparing for a wild card game in Houston. Houston's already out of it. Final four now.
Yeah, and look, I think just looking back on that game, as this is Chargers Weekly, and we think about how the Chargers could have ended up here, I firmly believe what Coach Harbaugh and General Manager Joe Hortiz said, and that's that this team could have traded punches with anyone, and it's just getting that first win is always so darn tough, especially when you're on the road and you're trying to take the crowd out of it and you're trying to build some momentum. And, you know, you get a turnover, you get a field goal on your first drive, and it just doesn't feel like it's building like it might have had you been at SoFi, and the crowd is into it and they're piling on. And here we are, the Chiefs, you know, ever since Patrick Mahomes became the starting quarterback in the AFC Championship game. Again, it is remarkable, and it's a reminder of how hard a hill this is to climb for any team in the AFC West.
Especially when you share a division with the Chiefs, you know that you either if you're a wild card team, you're going to have to win a couple to get to where Patrick Mahomes and company have been in the last 7 seasons. I think the one theme with these Final Four teams, Money, they took care of the football. And I think it bodes well for the Chargers because all season they took care of the football, but they did not in the wild card game. But you're looking at total yards and time of possession. None of that really seems to matter. It's the play of the quarterback and turnovers. And that's something that the Chargers were not able to accomplish in the wild card weekend.
And look, I know it's going to come as, you know, a bias or belly aching or whatever, but I have held this position forever. The idea that you have to go on the road to play a game when you have a better record than your opponent just doesn't sit well with me. I am fine with winning a division to punch your ticket into the tournament, but the idea that you have less wins and had a less successful season than your opponent and you still get a home game, it just doesn't work for me. I'm sorry. I think that
do you think they'll address that in the
No,
offseason?
they will not, because, and this is what's weird about it, is it's always been explained to me, because like I said, I've been talking about this forever. It's always been explained to me as, because look, they don't do a static bracket, which is great. That's forward thinking. Like, lowest seed always plays the highest seed because that's the way it should be, right? And you earned that top seed, so you should always have the best path for a successful regular season to the Super Bowl. But it's always been explained to me that the owners want that 25% shot at a home game for the playoffs because of the revenue. They want to have a shot at a home game. To which I would say, okay, well, now you have 3 more slots where you have an opportunity to have a home game and not just one by winning the division. If you could have a home game as a wild card team, and if you are blocked by a team that's a juggernaut in your division year in and year out, you still have that opportunity. I just don't understand why that debate has never been a pushback, because that's how it's been explained to me, is they want the 1-in-4 shot at the extra home game and the revenue that a home game brings because, look, it's in the millions of dollars. So I get that part of it, but I just don't quite understand why. You know, Chargers would have had 2 home games against Jacksonville and I think they would have had a home game. Oh, no, what was Baltimore in 2018? I know they beat them head-to-head on that Saturday nighter, but I don't remember if they had 12 or 11 wins. Like, it's possible that the 3 playoff games we've been in the last 8 years have all been on the road with a better record.
Yeah, they would have had, I think, because they won 12 games that year. I think
so they would have won the tiebreaker because they won the Saturday night game. But that's my point. Anyway, so I bring it up not to bellyache, but to build on what you're saying. Take care of the football, win the division. Like, win the division so you don't have to go on the road, so you can have home games in the playoffs, because we got the 1 versus the 2. And now, obviously, we have a 6 seed in the Commanders, but they're just getting absolutely ridiculous play, you know, arguably the best rookie quarterback performance we've ever seen in the history of the NFL if he ends up finishing this thing off and getting to the Super Bowl. So that's the other thing I would mention. Take care of the football, win the division, get some home games.
The Lions, too, you know, you win 15 games, but a +5 turnover differential in that game.
Yeah.
And
we saw that coming.
Yeah, to piggyback on that, though, Money, like, Minnesota would have had a home game against the Rams.
That's what I mean.
And, you know, the Rams, you had to play in Arizona, you know, which is obviously a special situation.
Yeah.
But, yeah, that's just one of the things that I've thought about over the last several years when you see, you know, a division winner that's like 7 and 8 too. Sometimes it's like, well, why do they get a home game?
Right.
Right. I guess now you have 17.
8 and 9. Yeah, 8 and 9 now, or 9 and 8, or whatever it is. And look, I think the thing with the Lions and where it separates from the Chargers is we saw that coming. Like, you can't have that defense and expect to beat playoff teams. And then when you compound that with an offense that's not the buzzsaw that it had been all year, and you're trying to win games 45-38, 48-45, and that's the only way you're going to get out of it, that's how it was going to look. And it was going to look that way against the Buccaneers. It was going to look that way against the Rams. Whichever team went in there, that's probably how that was going to turn out. For the Chargers, on the flip side, it's like, we're playing our best football. If we can get all three phases to play at peak, then this is a team that has an opportunity to win any game they play in the postseason. But you had to get complementary football, and they didn't get it from 2/3. They got it from the defense. I don't care what the number says, that it was over a 30-point, performance from the Houston Texans, but that's not indicative of what the defense did that day. Special teams and the offense, unfortunately, did not play at the level I thought the defense did. Well,
I thought Derwin said it best. That's the beauty of the NFL playoffs. It's not a 7-game series. So
No.
you don't have a chance to go back out there and avenge a loss right after losing. And the Chargers had that one opportunity, and it didn't swing their way. And here we are. Some Chargers news. Khalil Mack, who we did not know if he was going to come back to the NFL. He is going to return to the NFL. So whether or not he's in powder blue is another story, but I think it's a good sign, good first step that Khalil Mack's coming back to the NFL, and you hope it's with the Chargers.
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, look, you heard what Coach Minner had to say about him, Coach Elston had to say about him, Coach Harbaugh, Joe Hortiz, every player absolutely admires the guy. He's a leader on this team. He sets the tone, and he was a huge part of the number one scoring defense in the NFL. Why wouldn't you want it back? And obviously, he's someone who really likes it here, or else he wouldn't have taken the pay cut going into the 2024 season. So, and bringing him back can cure a lot. Well, I shouldn't say cure. Can help a lot of things. Is it takes, one less need off the board, and if you consider the relationship with he and Joey and how close the two of them are, whether or not that means that, Joey's not going to come back for $36 million. That's, that's obviously going to have to be worked out. Is it worked out in an extension? Is it worked out where he doesn't come back? But that's, so if Khalil's coming back and he's coming back on a solid number, it'll be interesting, because Joey has said, look, I've made so much money in my career. I like it here. I want to play with Khalil Mack. So that's, and if you have that, and then you keep your depth, because Bud Dupree's on a 2-year deal, Thule's on his rookie deal, then you bring back the same edge rushers from the regular season for, when at times it was dominant. It started to tail off a little bit toward the back end of the year, but then it popped again in those final 2 weeks and felt really good going in to that postgame, to the postseason. So him wanting to come back, to me, feels like maybe there was a conversation. He's got little kids, Do you want to uproot your family and go live somewhere for 1 year because you can make an extra? I mean, I'm never going to besmirch a guy for wanting to make an extra $1 million in the final year of his career.
I think Khalil wants to win a ring.
Yeah. So
I think he wants to win a Super Bowl, everything, and this could be the place to do it.
Yeah, I think if he feels that way, if it feels like this is probably the team with the least likely chance to win a Super Bowl during Jim Harbaugh and Joe Hortiz's tenure together, based on what they were faced with, the roster construction that they put together. I know the schedule helped. It was a last-place schedule, so that always helps. It looks a little more daunting next year, but it's going to be a better team next year. If you feel like, hey, this roster's only going to be better, and it might not be incrementally better, it might be dramatically better next year, then you're right. Khalil very well may want to come back here.
Yeah. Coincidentally, Joey Bosa replaces him in the Pro Bowl games. You just mentioned, obviously, Joey's cap number is very big, and that's going to be something that needs to be worked out this offseason. Another player made headlines this week as a finalist for Comeback Player of the Year, J.K. Dobbins.
Yeah.
That's another guy who is a free agent this year, who I think did himself a world of good with his performance this year, overcoming all those injuries. And you hope he's back in powder blue.
Yeah, look, he was great. Had the little month in the middle there where he basically why he was a veteran minimum free agent, showed up, and that's injury, and that's always going to be the concern, but you can't deny the talent. I mean, it was someone that we preached about in the preseason and in the offseason about the perfect guy for the Chargers to sign to take a flyer on, and he absolutely delivered. It'll be interesting because it's a deep running back draft, and when you talked about the final, the teams that made the Final Four, and you see the Commanders, it's a running quarterback. You see the Eagles, it's Saquon Barkley. I mean, they threw for 69 yards against the Rams, and they scored over 30 points. So
and that offensive line too.
And the offensive line. So I think that's sort of what has to be determined is what we thought this was. Every year we go in, we think it's going to be the year the Chargers have a great running offense, right? Greg Roman and Dobbins and Edwards and Alt and Slater and Bradley Bozeman so much better going forward than he is coming back. So, like, how this could be and it just didn't. It was there at first when you had J.K. kind of humming and you saw the, as we talk about repeatedly, take him to the deep end and then pull him under in the fourth quarter. There was a lot of that, but there was also, I think, enough to, when you think about sort of the run game disappearing at times when it needed to continue or at least perform its best, whether or not they want to see if there's a premier rusher, in the draft that they would take in the first 2 rounds. Whether Genty's sitting there, I don't think he'll make it to 22.
Probably
but
not.
Henderson's, from Ohio State, he is so explosive. There's enough guys that maybe you could see them going that path.
Give me Scatterbo on day 2.
Yeah, I know. That's
It'd be fun.
That's obviously, it would be fun, but look, I love the guy. Absolutely love the guy.
The
but
good
I
thing
think,
about, go ahead.
I don't think he's the lead back.
No,
he's not your lead back. Like Genty, Henderson, those guys are your lead backs.
The good thing about this draft, you hear, is very deep at the running back position. And J.K., the way he performed at the beginning of the year, obviously he got hurt, but if you improve the interior offensive line, it's year 2 with Coach Harbaugh, that's going to make the running game better anyway. But I do think that if you do bring J.K. back, you have to have another back that you could really bring. I mean, Kimani Vidal in year 2 could be somebody, but I think someone in the draft could be very important to Jim Harbaugh's offense in general, just running the football.
Yeah, well, and look, the thing with JK is he's great in pass pro. I know it, got away from him a little bit on a couple snaps there against the Texans, but it was just kind of that started snowballing on that team when it came to pass protection and the amount of pressure that they were able to dial up. But JK is a great pass pro back, and that's what you absolutely have to have. You see that from Coach Harbaugh and from what Joe Hortiz values is if you're not good in pass pro, you're not going to get on the field. So that's where the whole JK, let's get him back, and what you're getting there, and that's certainly valuable. For this team, and rookies tend to struggle in that, which is understandable. You don't necessarily have your man strength yet, and you're 205 pounds to 215 pounds, and there's a 235-pound or 265-pound defensive player running full speed at you, and you're expected to slow him down. It's not an easy task. It's a very hard thing for backs to learn, to do, to understand how to accept and receive that sort of pressure and that sort of strength and redirect it or stone it if you're a special back. And so that's where sort of the question about a rookie versus a vet comes in, and it'll make the JK situation interesting for sure.
Yeah. We're going to talk about the draft ad nauseum over the next several months, but someone did ask a question to Money that I wanted to get in here, talking about the mock draft and how all over the place it is: edge, tight end, running back, wide receiver. What do you think the Chargers could do as we sit here at the end of January at number 22 overall?
I think it'll be, to me, it's again a testament to Joe Hortiz and Chad Alexander and that whole staff, James McPherson and Kevin Kelly and all of them, that they're in a best player available position. I think you can, if you want to take, if you want to try to get the number 1 guard off the board and fix the, and help that interior of the line based on who's a free agent and what's available, there's guards that are valuable in that position. I think you're probably, wide receiver, it's deep and it's a little bit top heavy, starting with Mack. The tight ends are interesting. There's a ton of mock drafts that have obviously Loveland coming here because of the relationship with Coach Harbaugh and how we'd love to see Justin get that sort of down the seam, field stretching tight end. And
what about that kid Warren from Penn State?
He'll be gone.
He'll be long
He'll
gone,
be
right?
long gone. He is going to blow up the combine. He is
so good,
he is an absolute Gronk-like freak. People don't realize how big he is, how athletic he is. how versatile he is. He will be gone. There's a reason why everyone's got him going to the Colts, because it's just got Shane Steichen written all over it and how he would use him. When you think about how he used Hunter Henry when he was here, Justin's rookie year, how valuable Hunter was, what he was doing in Philadelphia with Goddard, and how valuable he was with Jalen Hurts. Like, that's just such a perfect match for them. Look, if he's there at 22, I'd have no doubt. But you've got depth at defensive end. You've got depth at corner. So, like, any of those things, as this process starts to shake itself out, I think that's the benefit, is it's not, like the year they took Q 2 years ago, we knew it was going to be a pass catcher. It was just lined up to be that way. It's like, oh, yeah, look at how deep this position is, whether it's Smith and Jigba, Flowers, or Johnston, or Dalton Kincaid, or Addison, or Laporta. Like, you just knew that's what that was going to be, because it was just a little bit more valuable than the other positions that were there. I don't feel that way this year. Just first glance, as I'm starting to dig into it before we head down to the Combine, it looks like there's a lot of depth at a lot of positions that the Chargers can use.
Let's just spin it back to the conference championship games too, and we talk about these. Who are the top 5 quarterbacks in the NFL? It seems like it's very top heavy in the AFC right now, with Burrow not even in the playoffs, with obviously Mahomes and Allen in the conference championship game. We saw Lamar, and what a great game that was in Buffalo last week. What has the playoffs, specifically in the AFC, kind of not taught you, but like you could store away and maybe kind of spin it forward to the Chargers in an effort to get to where the Ravens are, to where the Bills and the Chiefs are next year? Because it seemed like when we saw the Chargers against the Ravens the first time, it just felt like they were maybe a year away. And then it got better. And then, unfortunately, I don't think we were expecting what we saw in Houston. But it seems like they're close, Money, but you're going to have to go through a gauntlet of quarterbacks.
Yeah, for me, I think it's sort of the way I felt walking out of that game against Houston. And look, you mentioned it, the turnovers. They're so uncharacteristic, and it was odd, and you don't ever expect to see that, but it was there, and a lot of it was there because of the pressure up front. And I think for me, I knew going into that game that Houston had, one of the best pressure fronts in the league, and 2 guys that were the highest pressure rate edges, but I felt like it could be nullified by Rashawn and Joe, and Slater was sensational as always in that game. But they found some weak spots. And so for me, for the Chargers, I think it's what coaches always preached, that it starts up front, and look, it worked for them against C.J. Stroud as well until the final 5 minutes, and that, it was a 3rd and 16 where that wacky snap led to a busted play and they got their first touchdown. Prior to that, they were in his lap. There was pressure. He couldn't get the ball off. Routes weren't able to develop for Nico. So that still holds, right? It starts with those fronts in this division against Patrick Mahomes. You saw what they were able to do to Patrick Mahomes. The numbers in that Texans-Chiefs game are crazy. Like, you just walk out of it and go, how did they lose this game? When you look at the pressure rates, the quarterback hits, the amount of yards they were getting on offense, and they just could not capitalize on all of that. So I think for the Chargers, it's more of just you're following the leader, man. It's exactly what Coach and Joe Hortiz have laid out for what they believe is the path to success, and it's more of that. And I think it's also, it's living up to what we think their reputation is, and that's to be the most physical team that's on the field in any game. And I don't think that was necessarily the case in Houston. Houston was able to really get after it, and I tip my cap to them. They played a heck of a game. But to me, that's it. That's going to be their identity. It's up front. It's beating the snot out of you, and it's winning a game, probably tight games, late. There's not going to be a lot of blowouts because of the way they want to play, running the football, and, to steal another phrase from Coach, performing your best when your best is required. I think that's how they, get to the Super Bowl next season. For me, the floor of this Jim Harbaugh team was this year, and it was 11 games. And you look at the top 5 in cap space, the Chargers are. The opportunity to get more comp picks this year. I think with a full season of Harbaugh and Hortiz, the culture is set. It's a team like Washington that gives a lot of teams hope, but I give the Chargers hope in that, hey, you are 11 wins this year. Yeah. You have an opportunity to further build this roster,
make it in the image of Jim Harbaugh. You have your franchise quarterback in tow. The only challenge is that you got Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, and Patrick Mahomes twice.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest hurdle, I think, and that comes in January. And I think a myriad of things have to happen. We've seen in all these playoff games. It's one from the C.J. Stroud wacky fumbled snap to what we saw in Washington and Detroit last Saturday night. It's one or two plays that'll flip everything. But I do think the Chargers are in a magnificent position, being that 11 games was your floor, and now who knows what's going to happen.
Look, I'll finish with this. To me, it's the defense created 3 turnovers. They scored 3 points off 3 turnovers. So the opportunities presented themselves. That's what you want to do in those playoff games, is win the turnover battle. Now, they didn't do that, but the defense provided an opportunity for them to do that. Do we think this defense is going to be – do we think it's going to be better on paper or worse on paper next year? I think it's going to be better on paper next year, considering how many rookies they played, guys that were just getting settled in like Elijah Molden, some of the injuries they had to deal with, comfortability with, if they bring these guys back, and I think they will, and Poona Ford and Tierre Tart, and then like you said, the draft picks. You're talking about last year they had 7 picks, just 1 in each round, no comp picks. This year they're probably going to get into that thing with 10, it looks like. Maybe an extra 5, an extra 6, an extra 7, and now you've got $63 to $70 million worth of money to spend, and really the only big ticket you got to worry about is Rashawn Slater. I mean, big ticket that you've got to worry about, where $20 million plus. So
you may have got 2 starting corners in the 5th round. Tarheeb still Cam Hart in year 2. We didn't even really talk about Junior Colson this year.
No,
it's another
guy the whole year.
Yeah, who if he's healthy, I mean, just think of those 3 positions in year 2. Giving those guys back, knowing what the NFL is all about. I don't know, man. I have you always have high hopes. And, of course, it's Chargers Weekly, so we have high hopes. Yeah. But the fact that Joe Hortiz hit on all those guys in the back half, not to mention Ladd McConkey, who's still number 2 in the playoffs in receiving yards.
It's crazy.
I haven't played in 2 weeks. And, of course, Joe Alt.
Yeah. No, he knocked it out of the park with the draft, and you expect him to do it again because he did it every year in Baltimore too. So it's you're going to get players that will contribute immediately through that process. You've now got money to spend. When he had almost no money to spend, he found players like we mentioned, Poona Ford, Tierre Tart, Denzel Perriman, Bud Dupree. I can't oversell how big Elijah Molden was for this team. I would be absolutely floored if he is not back next year, and to have that
awesome
3-safety tandem of Alohi, Elijah, and Derwin. That's so instrumental to what Jesse Minter wants to do, to be able to keep those 2 high, put a cap on it, have Derwin running free all over the place as a slot, as a dime backer, as a freaking D end at times. So you've got that locked up. Dayon should be in the Pro Bowl. It's a crime that he's not. And Thule's going to take another. This is just name salad, but yes. I feel very good about where they are. I'll leave it at that. Yeah.
Your picks for Sunday. Get you out of here.
I mean, I think it's the same. Look, it's just what I want. It's Buffalo and Washington. It would be
1991 all over again.
Yeah, it would be beyond exciting, to have those 2 teams in there. Seeing history perhaps be made by a rookie in Washington, and and look, I know they're a competitor and they're a team that could stand in the way, and once they win a Super Bowl, maybe they get all this confidence, and you would probably not like to see that, but I just like Josh Allen, I do. I like him. I like the way the Bills are run. I love that fan base. It's such a fun place to go. They're always super cool to us whenever we're out there, so that's what I want. I do not want to see the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. I want to see them lose miserably, but whatever. That's how most of football America feels. I remember when they were playing the Patriots and the D Ford offsides, I was really upset. I'm like, this is ridiculous. The Patriots and the stupid, so it's funny how far we've come, because that's what the Chiefs have turned into.
Yeah, New Orleans would be a heck of a lot more fun if Buffalo and Washington were in that game.
No doubt.
But that's my pick too. I'm going with my heart though too, because the reason I'm even in football is because of my love for that team in Washington growing up. So we'll see what happens. For Muddy, I'm Chris. This has been Chargers Weekly. We'll see you next week.